Hello everybody and welcome back to the final quick guide episode of the season, Game Week 38. We are finally there. We are at the end of the campaign and there's one more game week of the season where we get to have some fun and have a look at a few more differential options maybe to try and gain that final last bit of rank, that final few amount of points that can take you over your mini league rival. And we've got all the info here to help you try and do so in today's video. If for some reason you're watching a Game Week 38 video and this is the first one you're watching, then make sure to subscribe. But let's not waste any more time. Let's get into things, shall we? And of course, when we're looking at differential things, the first thing you can do that can be the most differential is by going for a captaincy option. So is there a standout captain pick this week, or do you have permission to go fully off the wheel and go with whoever you think? Well, I've compared 4 of the top options here in my view, and we're going to go through them with the captaincy matrix as we always seem to do. Mohamed Salah is the one who comes in with the highest predicted points total of the game week, 6.5 points for him in Liverpool's fixture away at Southampton, who of course are already relegated and don't really have anything to fight for despite their pride. So 6.5 for him, Harry Kane on 6.2, and then we've got Erling Haaland and Gabriel Jesus is one I've gone for on 5.7 apiece. So Haaland not way up at the top like we've kind of become used to seeing this season. It's actually Mohamed Salah who is the one leading the way. In terms of ownership, if you want a more differential pick, then Jesus might be your man. Harry Kane is still going to be relatively low ownership as well. I don't think there are too many teams, especially near the top, that are managing to still hold onto Harry Kane right now, due to the fact that most teams have Haaland, a lot of teams have Salah in as well. It's very unrealistic to be able to afford all those 3 premiums, then add in other assets like Trent right now. So I think live ownership of Harry Kane is perhaps a little bit misrepresentative. I think a lot of top teams at the moment don't have Kane, and so even doing something like moving Haaland to Harry Kane and putting the armband on the Englishman for Spurs' fixture against Leeds could be a very differential thing to do. In terms of expected goals conceded, the opponents, this is why Leeds could be such a nice fixture for Spurs, is that their expected goals conceded is the worst of the bunch that we can see of the opponents of the 4 assets I've selected here. So 1.71 expected goals conceded for Leeds per 90. Haaland's actually got the toughest defence to go up against this week in Brentford. Brentford, who are especially much stronger at home. Man City already have the title wrapped up. There's probably going to be heaps loads more of rotation. I'm yet to see what's going to happen with the Man City game. Second game they've got in game week 37. Perhaps that could give us a little bit of an indicator. But with Pep, it is always almost impossible to predict what he's going to do, bar a few obvious players. And then finally, Gabriel Jesus, so he's going up against Wolves, a nice home fixture for Arsenal to round off the season. But again, 2 teams with nothing to fight for, really. Arsenal have looked a little bit off the pace. Of course, that defeat to Nottingham Forest was far from ideal as well. So it's really quite a big punt to go with an Arsenal asset, and probably Jesus in particular, who's not shown that kind of consistency throughout the season and hasn't really managed to find any sort of form having come back from his injury. In terms of which team is the strongest looking forward, it is Manchester City who have the best attack. Liverpool are in second, 1.92 expected goals per 90 for them as a team, with Spurs having the weakest attack. So although Kane on an individual note is looking strong, and also Leeds are looking poor at the defence, perhaps you can't expect that to be the highest scoring game, although we can know that the past data throughout the season is very rarely representative of what actually happens and goes on in game week 38. Sometimes there are games that just have like 8-9 goals when you just didn't see that coming at all. So you have to take a little pinch of salt with every stat that you look at for this game week, really. And then finally, expected FPL points there, the individual note we were talking about. Erling Haaland, of course, on top. Jesus down at the bottom with Harry Kane and Salah in the middle. Salah outperforming Kane on an individual note, and that's in terms of expected FPL points per 90 from the Opta tool over on the Fantasy Football Fix website. We'll move into the top 10 predicted point scorers, and we've already seen Mohamed Salah is coming in on top of that. Is anyone able to beat him out of the 4 players? No. So Salah is at the top. No one else I didn't select in the captaincy matrix is going to be top of his score. Kane, and then Saka is the one in third. So actually, he's looking like the strongest Arsenal asset when we leave it up to the algorithm and the predicted points totals. We've then got Jesus and Haaland coming in, as we saw in the captaincy matrix. Then we've got a few other options. So Heung-min Son could be another nice differential. He's managed to pick up a return here or there, and he has the potential to go big in certain games. Perhaps this fixture against Leeds, you could back Son over going for Kane if maybe you're looking for a midfield option rather than going for a striker. Maybe you've got a front three that's already set up quite nicely. We've then got Martin Odegaard, so another Arsenal asset, and probably my favourite Arsenal asset if I were to bring one in. I was very between him and another midfielder who we'll discuss in a second, who I brought into my own personal team a couple of weeks ago. And then we've got Alexander-Arnold, Marcus Rashford, and Cody Gakpo. So Gakpo, real only differential out of the rest of those. Rashford's back in training, so it looks like he'll be fit for Manchester United's second game of Game Week 37 and probably back for Game Week 38 as well. It was only illness that kept him out of the Bournemouth fixture in the initial game of Game Week 37 for United. Trent, I think a lot of people will just be keeping for this final game against Southampton. Looks a nice fixture, as we mentioned with Salah. And then Cody Gakpo, more of a differential pick perhaps, maybe might not get as many minutes. Firmino might get a bit of a send-off in Game Week 38. I'm not too sure about that. Liverpool fans, let us know down in the comments. But yeah, Gakpo's not convincing me overly that he has the potential to go and score 2 goals, 3 goals in one game. I'm probably going to eat my words now after saying all this. But yeah, Gakpo's not my favourite differential to go for this week, shall we put it that way. But what we will do now is have a look at the upcoming fixtures. We've only, of course, got one game week left. And the top fixtures to target, which I think is probably going to be the most helpful thing for this game week. Having a look at which teams had the best fixtures for attackers, which teams might have a good chance of a clean sheet as well, if they've got nice, strong defensive fixtures. And coming in top of the attacking fixture difficulty is Crystal Palace. And I think Eze, who I mentioned earlier when I was talking about the midfielder I brought in 2 weeks ago. I brought in Eze in Game Week 36 when he scored a brace. He got an assist in Game Week 37 as well. I'm pretty proud of that transfer, finally getting something paying off before everyone else decides to hop on him. But the Eze train is in full motion now, and I think a lot of people will be bringing in the midfielder this week. He has looked really fantastic, and it was actually the Opstastats tool on the Fantasy Football Fix website that helped me decide to bring in Eze. So if that's not proof that it's worthwhile having a look and using those stats to help you try and make your transfer decisions, then yeah, I was between Eze and a couple of the midfielders. Those statistics and the Optastats tool helped me decide to go for Eze, and it's paid off, and it's gained me some serious rank over these last 2 weeks. Also, at the top is Everton, who I think there are a few other options there you could go for as well. Dwight McNeil could be an option. I would have said Calvert-Lewin a couple of days ago, but unfortunately and unsurprisingly, he's got injured again. We've then got Leeds going up against Tottenham, which is ranked near the top, which I think is rather surprising, to be honest. I'm quite surprised that Bamford still continues to start, but he's got an injury now. I'm not quite sure how serious that injury is, whether we know who's going to start now for Leeds. Maybe you could consider that. That would be an ultra differential going for someone like Nonto. If I could say he was going to start, would be a nice pick. Maybe someone like a Rodrigo you could go for. But yeah, then Tottenham in here as well. So both of these teams looking like they've got rather poor defences going up against each other. Maybe could indicate a high-scoring game. Harry Kane, Heung-min Son, we've talked about them. Could be nice options to go for. Maybe even going for a defender with attacking output. Pedro Porro, although he got benched in the last game week, is one that I do like as a personal favourite. And then finally, we've got Leicester, who are fighting to stay up in this relegation battle. They're going up against West Ham United. James Maddison, the obvious pick. Harvey Barnes is in there as well. Both these players were benched in Game Week 37, and obviously you'd expect to start in Game Week 38 if Leicester are putting out their strongest lineup to try and stay in the Premier League. I think those two would probably be the ones of choice that I'd go for, all roughly the same price in that midfield slot, around 7 to 8 million you can go for there. In terms of defensive fixture difficulty and some defenders that you could look to target this week, we've got Arsenal up at the top, Wolves at home. Does look a pretty nice fixture. Both teams not with a lot to play for, but that doesn't always mean that neither attack is going to do any decent. That could also mean that it's going to be a high-scoring game. So you can't quite say that this is just going to be a boring 0-0, and you can pick up Ben White and guarantee yourself a clean sheet. We also can't really guarantee that Arsenal are going to start with the same lineup that's played throughout the season. There's always loads of mass rotation on the final day, and that is why it's important to stay up to date all the way to the deadline. We'll know quite a lot of the lineup information before the deadlines pass, so using Twitter, however you do it, make sure to take your transfers down to the wire, basically. This is the game week to do it. We've then got Everton defensively. I'm not too sure how I'd pick up out of those. You could go for someone who's got that kind of threat from set pieces. Yerry Mina, of course, got a very late goal in the last game week. Maybe even Keane you could go for. We've then got Crystal Palace, so Mark Guehi, again, another one who has picked up a couple of returns throughout the season. We've then got Manchester United, so we all kind of own the Man United assets already, I think, from game week 37. Luke Shaw looks the standout defender option if you want to go there. And then finally, Liverpool, so Trent, the real obvious one. I'm not sure too many people will be picking up any other defensive Liverpool assets. I think it's a chance to go a little bit more rogue, go with these Crystal Palace assets, maybe even Everton assets, despite how shocking they've looked in other game weeks. They are fighting in this relegation battle. And yeah, my overall advice, just have some fun this final game week. It's been a long season. There's been a lot of ups and downs, I'm sure, for all of you with your teams. But it's been a pleasure to bring you this quick guide series and to hopefully help you with a couple of decisions that ended up going your way. So it's been a real honour to bring you this series. I hope you have enjoyed it. Leave a thumbs up on the final video if you have made it all the way through to the end. Thank you for listening to me waffle on. And yeah, of course, all the links to all the tools, if you want to use them for this end of this season, next season as well, down below in the description is where you'll find the links. Thank you very much for tuning in, everyone, and I will catch you tomorrow for Eddie versus the algorithm. Goodbye.